right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to the special called Public Facilities Safety Committee meeting on Tuesday, June 4th. It is 10 a.m. If you could stand and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and looking around the room, we do have a quorum to conduct business today. A couple notes on here before we move on. One, it says there's an executive session on the bottom. We actually do not have one. I think we just had that left on there. That's why there's no items listed. We'll go on to number 3. Public notification this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. And we have one agenda item today. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second that.
A second, thank you. Any discussion? This will be done with no objection, and I see no objection. All right, we'll jump right in. I appreciate you guys working with me last Monday about coming out so we can spend some more time on this. It is a big impact for probably the next couple decades of the county. So we're going to go right into number 5, give Jared a couple time to come up here. It's going to be discussion of the possible amendments to propose 2024 transportation sales and use tax ordinance and referendum. Jared, thanks again, buddy.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate the opportunity. We had a lot to talk about and not rushing through and actually giving it its own time, so thank you for that. I just have a handout. It was in your backup materials, but this is a workshop like I mentioned last time, not just a presentation. So I want you guys to have this information. I passed it out last time. Don't know if anybody brought their homework back.
Thank you.
But just in case.
Thank you.
Yeah, I brought this back,
Well, y'all are good students.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jared.
but mine's in color.
It's this one, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's be picky.
You can use what you brought your homework.
Yep.
Y'all
We
all
did
get
bring our
a
homework, yes.
For homework assignments today.
There's some extra stuff in here, though.
Oh, this is extra.
Yeah, there's a whole breakdown in the back.
The only, on this, there's one additional document, I think, other than what's in your backup materials online, and I'll cover that as we go. So, not going to spend a lot of time on this first part, and this is PDF, Sarah, so I'll need you to move it. Let's see. Look at there. Okay, so not going to spend a whole lot of time on what we heard on the information and really just get to the brass tacks of what we're talking about today, and is what we have as the current program, what was presented to the public, and the things that we all heard, and are there modifications that we want to take a look at. So the last time we left off, I just ran through 4 options that staff presented of different time increments, and as you reduce the time, it also affects the value, and so projects start to either lose value or they lose altogether on this list. So it's more of a list of attrition versus addition, not adding new projects to the discussion points. All these projects that we're talking about were projects that were recommended from the Sales Tax Committee. So the work that they did is still pertinent, and the backup information is there for the specifics on what was intended under the program projects and even the specific projects for everybody's information just to review if you have questions. So just to recap what those 4 options were. So option 1 was staying with a 15-year option, but increasing a couple projects, which creates a decrease on other sides of the ledger. One was increasing 278 for $190 million. That's the full funding gap. Second was increasing funding for green belts. Another was increasing the Triangle project for the full value of that project for $245 million. And one I forgot to mention last time on the municipal projects, one thing we heard in Bluffton was no 5B. So as we go through the different options with the municipal projects, they may reduce in value, but each and every one of them will say no 5B for Bluffton. So that was an important element that I forgot to mention. And then you can see to the right how once you add funding for 278 and the Triangle, then it starts subtracting from some of the other programs. Also, lastly, The four things that will be consistent through the options are the increased 278, the increased triangle, the no 5B, and then the separation of dirt road and resurfacing. The full values there, the 180 million that was started with in the original program, we just separated the context, so dirt road was specific there. And then as we get through different variations, the resurfacing drops off and dirt road remains. Any questions on this modified version of a 15-year program? Same value, 1.625 billion. All right. Second option was a 12-year program valued at 1.2 billion. So what we have here is, I'm not going to go over on each of the slides the four constants, but I'll start with what changes. So green belt changes here. Originally it was at 85 and we moved it up to 110. So this, in most of these options you see green belts, we were around 5% in the initial 15 year, and then all of these are closer to a 10% increase. Mass transit was originally at 100 million. It got a slight deduct to 90 million. Argent Boulevard stays, or Triangle stays. Municipal projects, so they were all originally at 60 million, and these, in this iteration, they get dropped down to 30 million. Safety projects was initially at 250, and it got dropped to 150. Safety project was the biggest program all in all, just because most any project that we touch has a safety element, whether that's a intersection project, a widening project. Again, most any traffic project has a safety element, so that's why that bucket was the biggest, and it stays the biggest even as the other buckets get reduced. Dirt road paving and resurfacing, both of those dropped from 90 million to 50 million in this version. In pathways, it reduces from 90 million to, from 180 million to 90 million. And then lastly, 3 projects drop off: the resiliency and evacuation routes, the transportation technologies and access roads, and then the future projects drops off in this iteration. Any questions?
Can we make comment? It really concerns me taking the evacuation and resiliency off on this option, because anyone that lives on an island, you know, I understand why you took it off to make the dollars work, but I don't like it.
Nope, understand. And you're probably going to like it less as we move forward. So everybody has some project that they probably have some affinity to, and there you'll see these get chopped. This is just a staff version, and the hope once we go through these options is Jared will quit talking and you will start talking, and that comment will be appropriate. So if it's something you decide on whatever years and increments, then that comment, whether it stays in or gets improved or decreased or increased, definitely pertinent. All right. The next, option 3, is a 10-year program it would anticipate to collect 950 million. And so what we see here is the green belts reduced, or is still an increase from the original from 85 to 95, but is still in the 10% area. The transit, mass transit, is reduced from 100 million to 80 million. Remember, in mass transit, what's in that heading is obviously Palmetto Breeze and their needs. They do not have a funding source, a yearly funding source, and they're begging to their municipal partners year in and year out for a funding source. But also it has ferry and commercial airport, so Hilton Head Airport improvements. All 3 of those elements are inside mass transit. So then on this one, the municipal projects are removed completely out of this version in option 3, so 10-year 950. The safety projects are further reduced from 250 to 55 million. The dirt road and resurfacing, those stay constant from option 2 at 50 million. The pathways is again reduced from the original 180 to 50 million. And again, like option 2, all 3 of the last projects, resiliency, evacuation, transportation technologies, and future projects are eliminated in this version. Any questions on this iteration? All right, and lastly is the 8-year version. So this is 8 years for $725 million. And this is where we really start to see slice and dice going on. So green belts is this time reduced from 85 originally to 75. Still stays in the 10% range, but it's reduced from the initial 15-year element. Mass transit takes its biggest hit. So it is reduced from 100 million to 45 million. On the specific projects, this is the first time you see a specific project drop off. So SC 46 improvements from the traffic circle out to Jasper County line, that $20 million project drops off. And the municipal projects had already dropped off in iteration 3. And then in this one, all the program projects drop off except dirt road funding for a $25 million allocation. Obviously, the allocations can be adjusted. What this basically does, it gets us to the existing projects, green belts, mass transit, and specific projects is what this does. And then lastly, this was not included, but one thing I want to talk about before you guys get into nuts and bolts is we had John and myself had the opportunity to go to Columbia this past week to talk about 278 with the State Infrastructure Bank and the SIB. And as we discussed, we have a $190 million gap on 278. And in each of these iterations, which were created about 2 weeks ago before this meeting, we had $190 million in there. And one of the comments that we've heard back in common, not specifically, but just in general, is that we had $80 million in 2018 out of that program, 66% of the previous program going to the bridge project. Now, in this project, if we did $190 million out of this is another large chunk that's going to that one specific project and specifically south of the Broad. And that would, what we expressed to the SIB and to DOT is if we did that, there's two issues that we have in front of us right now in 278. First is municipal consent, which the town is working on that this month. And second is the funding. So there's a $190 million gap. And if sales tax doesn't cover it, then what else? And if there is no other funds from the state or from the SIB, that would be the onus is on the county to come up with the funds. So if $190 million isn't in sales tax, where else would it come from? And for us, that would be GO bond. Whether that GO bond, that is pretty much our extreme max, what we have capable under our 8% threshold today, or if that wasn't a council decision and we weren't successful with sales tax or a full measure wasn't included in this, then a specific GO bond referendum, much like the school district referendum was a GO bond referendum of $190 million. So as we were talking through that with the SIB and the state, they understood our disposition. And so $190 million is what we put up there 2 weeks ago, but it may not be the right number. There was a good conversation. The best thing was we did not get kicked out of that room. We didn't know how that meeting was going to go when you go ask for $190 million, but we had made a more appropriate ask to share that cost, and it was received well. We didn't get a check. We didn't come back and say we have the money. All that to say is $190 million doesn't have to be the number that's reflected here. It just needs to be a measure that puts us in an opportunity where we can still exercise additional funds if needed locally, or if we can grade state funds even, all the better. And similar to that note is the Triangle project. So what we did 2 weeks ago was we increased that to the full measure of the project. It was sitting at $100 million, and we moved that to $245 million. And as we presented to the SIB, there was a graphic, and I don't have it to share, but basically since 2020, the fall of 2020, Federal Highway does an index of the cost of national highway cost of construction, or highway cost construction. And for the past 11 quarters, that has went up and to the right. every single quarter over the last 11 quarters. And collectively, the cost of construction has outpaced the inflationary CPI, the producer's PPI, as well as the labor costs significantly, to the tune of 69%. So the fact that we're talking about shoring up our 2018 sales tax projects isn't because the 2018 sales tax was erroneous or we didn't get the job done. This is a black swan event from COVID, the inflationary pressures that we all feel, times construction costs has created a 70% national average of increased cost over the last 3.5 years. So the fact that we would be adding any amount to those projects that's the rebuttal. If people say, well, you haven't got projects done, is, well, we haven't seen a 70% increase like this before. So I say that to say that the Triangle project, if you fully fund something, it doesn't allow the opportunity for other funding to marry up with that project. So we were successful in 278 in attracting DOT funds and state funds. In the Triangle project, the Jasper County is doing the same process, so they're going to be attracting funds as well that we can put together with potential state funds. So all that to say is that the $245 million may be something to talk about too. If you want to come off that number to spread it out to other projects, you're more than welcome. And one last thing for me to quit talking, and then I'll hand it to you guys 100%, is the other thing that we've learned. We're all getting smarter together, and especially I'm getting a lot of experience in this capacity. There's certain projects that we've already started that, because we've started, if we want to attract federal funds, we would have to start the project over. So in essence, because we're substantially down the design path on a couple projects, those projects are probably going to be local projects. They're never going to receive federal funding. And those two projects are Ladies Island Corridor and the SC 46 improvements down in Bluffton. So we've started engineering on both of those. And so it may be something to discuss that we bump both of those up just a little bit, knowing that we will never receive outside grant on those two projects. So.
Can you just briefly tell us why?
Yes, so again, learning process had a great discussion with Federal Highway and DOT a couple weeks ago. And the federal process is, once you federalize it, you can't be a little federalized. It's either you're pregnant or you're not pregnant. And so once you start the process, that you're in the process. Even if it stops for 2 years or 5 years, if the project ever comes back, you still got to go down the federal process. So if you have any inclination that this is a project that you're going to raise your hand for a federal grant, then you have to start that project from the very onset for it to receive that grant. And so you have to go through the NEPA process and the LPA process, and so it significantly slows a project and significantly adds to the project, but is that those two negatives worth the positive of sticking your hand up for federal funding? Okay. And you have to decide that at the very beginning. And unfortunately, we didn't make that decision on those two projects, and we're very far along in the design on each of those. So.
Jared,
All right.
if I might ask.
Question for him? Go ahead.
Yeah. On the Triangle project,
Yes, sir.
you said that the options increase as we go as we reduce the years to 245.
Yes.
And you also mentioned that Jasper County will contribute to some of that work. What time frame are we looking at, and is that through the 1 cent sale tax that they're going to do also?
Yeah, so what they don't have the road list specific yet, but they're currently, their version, they're looking at a 15-year program to collect anywhere from $250 to $400 million. Out of that program, a lot of their funding is targeted toward the Triangle and 278 widening back to I-95 and SC 170 46 improvements in southern Jasper County. I don't know the specifics, whether it's 20 million or 50 million that they have obligated, but that's what their prioritization and focus is around.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, when you're ready, I'll go after you're done.
Yeah, so what I would like to do is, I mean, I know all of us have questions and we all have projects that we want to hit. There's no denying that. And we're going to have to hit those and get to it. But I think the first thing we have to do as a group is to figure out how many years we're going to do. If we can't figure out how many years we're going to do, we don't know what our budget is and which projects we can start listing and seeing how much money is going to go to those projects. So what I would like to do as a group is if we can target down how many years we're actually going for so we can get an actual rough estimate of a budget, that's going to let us know which projects we can focus on, which ones we need to hit. We know we have some projects from 2018 that have to go on this list. They have to get completed. And we know we have to hit projects on both sides of the river, as you people want to say it. So that's going to have to be discussed, but I don't see us getting any resolution on those answers until we know how much money we're actually going to have to be able to put into these buckets.
Mr. Chairman, one of my questions for Jared is going to help me focus a little bit on what you want to accomplish. Is it possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Back in April, you shared with us, we collected a roughly $146 million, 2018, that we still have in our referendum account for 2018. Of that, we earmarked $80 million for the corridor, 278 corridor. Does that still stand correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so whatever you're doing here additional is going to be added to that.
That's correct. Yep. And then one thing that I didn't have in everybody's backup, but it's in the handouts I just provided, is this tabulation. And this will help in this discussion. So if you pull that out, what that is given our growth rate and what we expect to earn is how much each year. So if you do a 5-year, you do a 15-year, you do a 25-year, that's the number there. So if, as y'all are talking about what years make sense, and you want to know basically what that is dollar-wise, that sheet will help guide this discussion, hopefully.
Mr. Chairman, you indicated that there are some essential items we have to consider. And I don't know if the essential items have a dollar number on them, but if we have consensus to build a essential item list, that may help us decide what option year-wise we want to use here.
Yeah.
Can we build some consensus on the essential
I think
items?
that's a great idea. Can you throw up the 15-year plan, since it does have all the list on there? That just
Yep,
gives us a nice round list of all the projects here.
Well, back what I had.
While he's pulling that up, I mean, the US 278 was on our 28 referendum. The Ladies Island corridor was on the 28 referendum, and then the pathways. And those have not been completed because of rising cost, inflation, whatever you want to call it. Fact is, we passed a referendum, we have not gotten that done yet. I believe those three have to be on that list. Now, the dollar amounts can be discussed and changed. Jared just actually talked a second ago about 278 maybe not needing 190 million. Maybe, we do split that with the state and we drop it down to 80 to 100 million.
What were those three essentials you just mentioned?
It should be the top three up there. Completion,
I see it.
yep,
Ladies Island, yeah.
That whole section.
that section off to the, yep. Those were all in 2018 that were not completed or because they were not fully funded with the rising costs or delays,
Got it.
for whatever the reason.
Yeah, I think that if we can't commit to finish the things that were in that 2018 referendum, we're not going to get a lot of support for the other referendum. So as part of the, not the advocacy, but the education here, we have to go back and say, we're going to get focused on finishing out the projects. Of the 9 we identified, we apparently have done 3. There's 6 still outstanding. We have to make a commitment to the people that we're going to get focused on those as part of what we're going to do going forward. I think that makes sense. Can't just ignore those. We have to go back and reclaim them,
I agree.
It's just a matter of how much will it cost.
Joe?
8 is too few years, so I think we should eliminate 8.
I agree.
Yeah, I was
So-
leaning toward 10.
Well, let's do it in a logical manner. Are we okay eliminating 8 years?
Yes.
Because it's too few dollars, too few projects that are essential.
Is that, those ones you just mentioned, are they,
Can I ask?
Are they eliminated or are they still in at 8?
No, they're, pathways.
They
go
would
away.
still be in there, but I
They're
guess,
still be in there, but we're not 100% sure if in fact, over an 8-year period of time, we'd still have enough money. And we can't do many of the other things that are on this list,
I got you.
so I think 8 should be
Okay.
eliminated.
Of that 80 million that you still have in the referendum account, what's the other amount, Tom?
Well, it's 146 million right now, minus that 80 that's earmarked
can I
for
get
the
a-
There's still
278.
66 million in there for us?
There's 146
Yeah, so
million minus.
66.
Yeah.
So there's still 66 that we can add to the referendum collection?
Jared, are my numbers
you so much.
accurate?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
146 million collected, still in the account, 80 earmarked toward 2018
That's
corridor.
correct.
So there's 66 million in there.
Well,
Can
so we had 120 was the initial, so 80, 30, 10. So 30 for Ladies Island, 10
Yes,
for the
sir.
pathways.
those
Um,
have to stay in those projects.
Those have to stay, those a minimum amount, all the funding from 2018 has to stay in those three projects.
Okay, but how much of that is available for us if, regardless of the years? How much of that money is available for those essential items under the TSD3 project?
Yeah, so out of the 2018, where we collected 145 instead of 120, so 25 extra, we put 20 already, council, hold on, let me get my numbers right. We had 15 and 10. 15 of that over collection, of that 25 over collection towards the underfunded pathways. And then there's 10 that hasn't came before council for, okay, where do we want to assign that $10 million? So that's the only wiggle room left in 2018. Would you want to put that 10 towards Ladies Island? Would you want to put that 10 towards 278, or would you want to put that 10 towards the
What's
pathways?
the total?
145 million.
We have 80 already committed, so that leaves us 65 million.
We've got 120 already, 120 committed originally, then we committed another 15 towards the pathway, so we have 135 committed out of
On these
145.
items right here, that
But Larry,
that would just, excuse me, that would just deemed essential.
That's correct.
Okay.
The
Yep.
only discretionary is the 10 million, correct? That's it. Out
Out
of
of-
that whole entire package, 10 million is
Well, the thing is, we're
discretionary.
not relying on this referendum now to collect that 135 million, because we already have it.
Well, Jared, that was gonna be my question. Is this money additional to what we already have we need?
That's correct.
Yes.
So,
Right.
that money we had before, we have to act like it doesn't exist. It's there, but it's basically just covering the cost of inflation.
Well, it has to do with what you're doing with regard to the years you're gonna select, whether you want 725 million, or whether you want 950 million, but there's 135 million there. So if those are essential and we have the money, you don't even have to consider those.
But Larry, what he's saying is, these
You have
numbers
to
he's giving us
consider
for what we need is
Yeah.
already considering that money is there. We still
I know.
need this additional money on top of that money we
To
had.
do that, do the
Yeah.
essential one?
Yes.
Yes.
So, but my question would be, Jared, what do you think we could rely on with the state or the SIB to help us with those two projects? Are we looking at 50%? Because if that's the case,
Yeah,
we
so.
could save $225 million if we drop the US project down by 90 million. That puts us to 100.
Yep.
And if the state or somebody else stepped up for 90, that saves us 90 there. And then if we cut the other one down 100 million or 120 million, the Triangle project, would they be able to commit to the other 100 million? That
Well,
saves us
so
225.
the 278 to start with, so what we proposed to DOT and the SIB was to take our current, what we went in with our grant application, that, there was a ratio, the total cost was $272 million. And I don't remember the specific numbers, but we had about
I got it.
40%, and SIB had 45%, and the state had 15%. So if we move those numbers up, our contribution at that rate would be 85 million, and then DOT 15 million, and the SIB 95 million. That was what our discussion focused around when we were talking about the $190 million delta with the state last week. So we didn't get guarantees that they're gonna come up with that funding, but that was a starting point for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, could I throw one more thing out here? So-
Absolutely.
Because this is very important. We represent an awful lot of people as we sit here today. And Jared, we went out on a five-stop tour giving facts.
Yes.
The majority of
I'm
people.
going to stop you real quick, Tom. Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess and reconvene at around 10:35.
And I just let me.
All right, we are back. We had some matters to attend to real quick, but we are back in discussion still talking about the years for this. So I would like to, I know Mr. Dawson has a question, but we're starting to get back on projects here. We know that we have a couple necessities that we have to hit. But if we can start removing a couple years or a couple options, that's what we have to do. We have to figure out what is palatable for the community to get this passed. So that needs to be our first discussion. We can always move around money in it, but we need to start narrowing this down to two options. We're just going to keep going around and around and around for hours.
Right.
Could I maybe
So-
throw you out the third one that I was going to try to say before we took a quick break? We represent a ton of people, and with the 5-stop tour, we had a tremendous amount of feedback. And the majority of information that I received was, this is not the right time for this referendum.
And I agree with that.
Is that, thank you, is that an option here, or is that not an option?
I mean, I think anything's an option, but I can say that would have to be voted on by the committee if it moves forward or not. You're more than welcome to advocate for no referendum. You vote no matter which option it is. But I would say in the discussion that we're having now, in case it does pass, whether you wanted to or not, that I would put your input in to get, if it does go through, the things that you would like to be added onto it. But that time would come during county council meeting to shoot down the referendum.
Well, I just want to make it clear that the majority of people that we met with in Hilton Head and abroad is this is not the inflationary times. This is not the right time for this type of program. Not to mention, 2018, we still have $150 million that we haven't spent. We haven't
Which we
checked the
do not have
boxes.
the money to complete those projects because they are
Listen,
divvied up into those.
I understand that,
So it's just
but-
gonna sit there.
Well, inflationary times like this, 30, 69% or 70% more costly, maybe you ought to take a pause with this and come back. Let's check some boxes. Let's give these taxpayers a 6% rate for a while, show them that we care about them, and come back when the time is right. And there's not this type of inflationary pressure. I don't understand why that's not an
Mr.
option.
Chair.
This,
Okay, can we move on?
this is what I will say.
Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Passman, we can move on, but that's a valid question. It's not from me, it's from the constituents. So don't push that along like that. If you don't want to do this, you go home.
No, I
Wait,
wanna-
That is,
Would you just say,
I mean, I should be able to speak on
Take
behalf
it
of the
easy.
people and move on. Why do we have to move on?
Mr.
because
Chairman.
we're going to decide a
Guys.
number of years.
All right, that's
Mr. Chairman.
fine.
the option we need to have right now, if you want to vote for no on any referendum, you're more than welcome to do that, and we can have that debate
Thank you.
when that time comes. But the debate we need to have currently is about if we are going to pick an option, and which one is it gonna be?
May I suggest that nobody speak unless you call upon them?
That's
Right.
right.
And that you
Thank you.
call upon everybody before,
Thank you.
you call upon anybody a second time.
Perfect,
Thank
thank you. I'm gonna move on to Mr. Dawson, he had a question before we had break, please.
Yeah, before we decide what length of time and the years that we're going to select, I need a clarification. Jared, on the handout sheet, we've got 24 pathways, and then down below, we got pathways. Now, the one at the bottom is the pathways that were selected for 2018.
Yeah, at the top is the 24 pathways from 18. And so the reason there's 0 in the top rows is because we had pathways as a program project down below, and it was a large amount, $150 million is what it started out. So what we had talked about previously is if we have that programs in the project, that we would first complete the 2018 pathways out of that bucket of funding before we would move to other pathways. Then once you got to year 8, that program dropped out, but we wanted to make sure that we still committed to getting the 2018 done. So we put a $30 million placeholder in that option there. So that was what that's about.
Okay, we promise the citizens that those 24 pathways that we initially listed, that this referendum was going to pick the total numbers of them, not just the first 2 priorities that the council members chose in 2018.
That's correct.
And the remainder, which will include the entire 24, that this referendum is going to pick all of those up. So now, according to the options listed here, we don't get anything for the past 24 pathways until year 8.
No, what I was trying to say is, so in year 1, we had $150 million in pathways, or $180 million originally in
Right.
pathways. And to finish the 2018 pathways, there's approximately $30 million need. And so out of that $180 million initially, $30 million would be used to finish 2018, then $150 million would be used for future pathways to be determined. So we were committing to do those 2018s, the whole, in any version that's up there on the screen, those 2018 are to be done. It's just where it's pulling from funding-wise, where it's shown, reflected.
Yeah, Gerald, if you look at option number 4, which is the 8-year, it removes the pathways completely. He's saying he's just shifting that funding from what used to be listed as pathways to just targeting those 24. But when the other options had pathways in there, it included the 24. But now if we do drop out pathways completely, it's saying that those 24 from 2018 will be funded and completed. That's what that funding's for. That's why they don't kick into year 8
Okay,
on the option 4.
okay.
Is because it was already included in the pathways option before, but we're removing that overall pathways option to just focus on those 24.
Yeah, well, I just want
Yeah.
to make sure that.
I agree, yeah.
that we got to get those done.
I agree.
mean,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
If not, then we're gonna have a windstorm of people actually crucifying us.
I don't think it passes at all if we don't hit the three things that we listed
already
earlier, for sure.
promised, yeah.
Tab asked me, then we're coming right over. Yes.
Oh, so I agree with those we have to do. I was just gonna comment on the referendum itself. I attended 4 out of 5 meetings. I have extensive notes if anybody wants to see them. That no one said now is not the time. They objected to 15 years. They objected to 1.62 billion. The B scares people. In Gerald's, it was all about the dirt roads. It was about pathways. It was about no 5B. I attended 4 out of 5. I did not hear people say this is the wrong time to do a referendum. So I just wanted to clear that up, and I have all the notes.
I had a couple of comments.
Chairman,
Oh,
Chairman, can I
yay.
speak real quickly?
Hey,
Hey,
Yeah, come on.
where'd you come from?
Can, yes, right after Ms. Howard.
Like Morgan Freeman.
Can I speak before you, Ms. Hall, because I may have to leave.
That's
real
fine.
quickly.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm on the opposite of Joe Passman at this time. I prefer option 1 or 12 years. I prefer the 15 years, 12 years. I think that anything less than that will compromise anything that would happen in my district. I just want to say that. Resiliency is one of the things that's going to happen in my district. Dirt roads is another one. So I just know that anything other than that will compromise those efforts. So I just want to put that on record. Thank you.
York, what's the years that you are insisting on?
I want 50. I prefer 15 all the way, because right now, as far as I'm concerned, nobody realized how much that 6 cent, 7 cent tax impacted their lives. They don't even notice it.
So your option 1 is what I'm trying to clarify?
Option 1,
Okay.
with the adjustment, or 12 years, option 2 is the least I would go.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Yes,
I had a
ma'am.
couple of comments. One, I don't know, I don't think too many people really understand what the flexibility in green belts that there could be. We could actually do pathways as part of green belts if we pattern it after Charleston's, which I've read their green belt. We are still gonna have a lot of money in green space, I think. So I know we heard from the mayors, I think the chairman did, that they wanted the green belt increased, but I think that's an area that we might keep it as it is no matter what option we choose, because pathways and green belts can go together if we fashion it that way. It's up to us. I'm looking to Tom, because I think he's read Charleston's green belt.
Charleston did
You
green
can do
belts.
sidewalks with green belt, and that's also another way to build in resiliency too with the green. So I would suggest that we keep green belt as it is. I like the 12-year option because I've heard back from people, they think 15 years is too long, but we need to figure out some way to build in some resiliency and evacuation. And I see we would still keep, if we can still keep the municipalities in the mix. My constituents represent 2 different municipalities. They want to see they want to keep that in there somehow or another, whatever it is. So that's my comments so far.
If I might.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to Alice's point, I have to disagree with her. The green belt to me is recreational and a luxury item. To create a green belt that someone could ride or transit from Maine to Florida is a luxury.
Well, that's not what
Wait a
green
minute,
belt
wait a minute, let me
is.
finish.
That's not, in my mind, what it is.
Well, it's a difference of opinion. And nevertheless, the point I'm getting at is that because it's a luxury and it's recreational, it doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't rise above the need for my constituents who live in the rural part of the county, who still live on dirt roads that are unpaved and that are a total mess during inclement weather. Now you weigh the two, luxury path or a greenway from Maine to Florida versus dirt roads in the 21st century in the rural part of the county that we still haven't paved yet.
Well, I wouldn't mind if we took green belts out completely.
Well-
I wasn't saying I was promoting green belt at
We can
all.
take funds from Greenbelt
We
and put it
should.
into the dirt roads.
Well, that's what,
So,
that's
let me-
fine. Yeah.
So, we're getting to the point again of moving money around from options with not knowing how much money we're playing with yet. So I'm gonna try to hone some of this down. You guys might agree, might disagree, and we can debate about that. 15 years, 1.6 billion dollars, doesn't seem like something that's gonna pass. That would be the longest referendum we've done. I would love to be able to fund all these projects, but we are in certain times where we don't know where this county's gonna go that long. But we do have to get something that's gonna be passed. If we don't pass this now, we're another 2 to 4 to 6 years down the road to be able to try this again. So, as for you two, you were talking about options of funding that needs to go places. Jared just got done talking about that the US Corridor project and the Triangle project, that right now we have it currently fully funded by option number 4 alone, which is 8 years. But he's saying that the state or the city will not help out if we have it fully funded. So we have other options to go get that funding if push comes to shove. If we drop the US Corridor project down, if you guys want to go to option number 4, which in our packet is page 13, if you drop that project down, US 278 to 90 million, that gives us an extra 100 million. If you take the Triangle project and dropped it down to 120 million, that gives us another 125, which puts us at $225 million. So right there on option, for the option number 4, the 8-year plan, we have an extra $225 million to already start discussing, do we put that into dirt roads? Can we get some more funding there? Do we put that into emergency and evacuation resiliency? If I'm looking at emergency and evacuation, we originally on your 15-year option was 90 million, which is something Mr. Glover just discussed online, that was something he said he needed. That's 90 million. We have the funds for that if we reduce those two options. And we also still have the funds to increase dirt road paving, and we still have money left over.
Do you think we can get to 950 million without going 10 years, but rather go 8 years with those cutbacks?
I think we could, if we want to appease that, I know we had people at 10, we had people at 8, we could go 9. And no one says it has to be a round numbered.
No, we're
Where's that?
saying with 8 years and those cuts, that gives us 950, which was the projection for option 3.
Just
That's
about.
725 plus 225,
And it gets us right there in that middle,
if that all happens.
if that all happens. Correct. If it passes, it gives us the funds to be able to hit 2 of the
Well, with
buckets
those
that they're,
reductions.
with those reductions.
Right, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
hey, this is Mark, and I'm online obviously, but I just wanted to put my 2 cents in there from what I was thinking, and it's not much different than what we've heard so far from everybody else. If I had a magic wand, it actually happens to do a toll road to Hilton Head, since Hilton Head has held us up to pay for the bridge. However, I say that to jest. So please don't think that I'm being serious when I say that. But again, it has cost us a lot more now. A lot of this money we're talking about is coming because of it. But I think that we're going to have naysayers no matter whether we go with 8-year plan, 10-year plan, 12-year plan, or 15-year plan. It's going to be the same group of folks that are out there that are going to come after us. And I know we're trying to do this to try to appease more people. The people I've talked to, at least in my district, know that this is needed. They know that we need to have a long-term plan. We know we need to have money that's going to be coming in for years to come, because no one wants to see it be a property tax, even though we are paying the 1 cent. Myself included, the people that I've talked to would rather pay the 1 cent and then have as much of this tax be a burden on the tourists that come to visit us. So for me, I would be for the maximum number of years. I think, again, we're still going to get that same adversarial group that's going to come after us that I think is on the minority and stuff on it. So anything in that 10 to 12 to 15-year time frame is what I would be interested in doing. And again, that falls close to where you were with 8 or 9 years. But But again, just people I've talked to know what we're doing, they understand what we're doing, and it's something that we all know that needs to be done.
Thank you, Mark. With what he said and the statements I made, where can we move forward with this, guys? We have to narrow this down. We're all across the board right now. I'll be honest with you guys. My magic number is, I'd take 9. I know it sounds weird, but 9 puts us at $825 million. We move that extra money around that we just discussed. That gives us extra $325 million.
225.
Well, with the extra year, it puts us to 325 to fill some of these buckets for dirt road paving, safety, and if he said before, the safety projects allows us to put that into a lot of different areas.
What's your 9-year total again?
9 years puts us at $825 million.
No, it's gotta be more than that, because you have 225 you saved the other way. So the other one was 720, there was only 950 with 8 years with those savings. So 9 years would be
It's 825
950.
He's got it right here.
on the
Yeah.
list.
9 years gives 825. The original 8-year was 725.
825,
Is 9 years.
okay, plus the savings you're talking about?
Well, the savings is still in the budget. We're just talking about moving that money somewhere else. So the money's
That's what
still.
I mean, yeah, okay. Oh, I get it, okay.
You see what I'm saying? So we're just having an extra $325 million to start funding some of these other projects that need done in our communities.
We'll reduce Greenbelt.
I have no problem with that as well, because I'm with you on the green space. I believe that's been a great program so far.
But it's still making money, so
It is. Well, it's gonna,
it was going to.
yeah, as long as they keep investing it the way they have been,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm in agreement with York and Mark. When we held the community meeting at my district and at Battle Creek High School, we didn't get any pushback on the 15-year term. They were just concerned about making sure we get the dirt roads in there and we get those pathways finished. So, like Mark and York, I'm in favor of the 15-year.
It looks like it's time for us to have those conversations then. You say 15 years?
I did.
Tab, where are you at?
So, but I have a clarifying question. Are we eliminating the capital as an option? Because I was going to half penny capital, half penny transportation for 10 years. We're never gonna get a law enforcement center.
I can speak to that a little bit, if, Chairman.
Yeah, absolutely.
So first of all, on the capital, 8 years is the max on the capital penny.
Okay.
And then on the capital, we do have a capital project sales tax committee that's established, and we would have to reconvene. And then, just logistically speaking, they would have to bring forward a recommendation back to committee, back to council, 3 readings before August 15th. It's doable, but we'd have to hit every single mark. Plus, there hasn't been any public education on that component yet. And then, as far as the law enforcement center, there's, over the next year and a half or 2 years, regardless whether we did a penny or not, capital penny or not, would be the design and permitting process. And so we don't have any of that done currently. So regardless whether you did a capital penny in '24 or it has to be in even years for capital penny,
26.
if you did it in '26, that has to be done. So if there's an opportunity to fund that elsewhere, then you haven't lost any time on the funding needed for construction. So just
Got it.
for,
Okay, then I'm at 10 years, but moving the buckets around like green space and stuff.
Like we discussed, okay?
Mr. Chairman, this has not been advertised as a workshop, it's advertised as a meeting, so I assume you guys are gonna make a recommendation to council, so I think you need to follow your protocol, which is Robert's, so you need a motion and a
motion.
second and all of that, I'm afraid to say.
So we allowed to discuss where everybody stands without a motion, or do we need to have a motion?
I don't think you need to be taking votes on it, because if you're gonna do that, I think you need to get a motion and all that.
I don't think he's taking votes, Tom. I think he's getting.
Just trying to read where everybody's at, because we have so many people throwing different numbers across the board.
As long as it's not votes.
Yeah, I would think we would still need a motion to decide which one we would move forward to. Joe, where are you at?
I'm torn between 10 and 8. So the sweet spot could be 9.
9 or 10 for me.
And this is from my constituents.
Mhm.
They want 8, but they don't want these exact.
Buckets.
Yeah, and they agree with Mr. Dawson, these dirt roads need to be repaired way above the green belt and the mass transit.
Okay.
Ms. Howard?
I'm for the 12 because of the municipal governments needing some, 12 or 15, but 12 is my spot. Because it gets, even if we take away from some of these other things, we still need to
Right.
do something for the municipalities to get their votes.
Tom?
I appreciate all I've heard here, and I think I'm going to stick with my no vote.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
To Alice's comment.
Yeah.
Chairman, you got 2 online.
Yeah, I was just about to ask. Mr. Glover, are you still sticking with 15?
15 on 12.
Yes, sir. Mr. Lawson still was saying 12 is what I had him down for.
And I have no problem, obviously, if we're gonna take away some of the green space, and that creates more money other places, which I think is what I've heard people talk about. The 9 to 12 is something I would be happy to vote for, as long as the most important things, such as Mr. Dawson mentioned, the dirt roads, and other things are taken care of. And again, by doing that, we could cut back on some of the green space. So I am in that 9 to 12, and I can be swayed or be pushed to vote in any direction on that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Does the 10-year program eliminate the municipalities?
Yeah, the way it is now.
It does not.
Well, now it does, on this,
Yes, it does.
it does.
Well,
The way
it
is
does it
going
on this paper, but it
But
may
we could
not with
change
the
it.
reallocation.
It could be reallocated.
Yes.
But you're right, I'm looking at 8-year.
Yeah.
We flip back.
Logan, did you weigh in?
I did not weigh in, but I will after you guys are done.
That's 90 million.
I'm at the 9 to 10, preferably 9. I think it needs to be under 10 years. That's where I'm at. I do not have ability to make the motion as chairman, so that will be up to somebody here on council to do. I can tell you we have, the majority of people are at that 10 or below range based on what we talked about. But if we can have some type of motion for a year, we can start discussing and move on with council of where we are gonna put these buckets, and then we will have a budget set.
I'll try a motion. I'll make a motion for a 10-year program to collect sufficient funds that will include funding for requests from the municipalities.
Say that one more time for me, just so I heard exactly what it is.
10 years with sufficient funding to include the requests from the municipalities.
The request of their buckets,
Well,
or a request
their
of project?
projects, not the buckets assigned
Okay.
now. Because that may be something that has to be flexible, but we would have to address some of the concerns from Hilton Head, Bluffton, Port Royal, Beaufort, and Northern Beaufort County.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I'm for the 10 years, but I was looking at this program, I would eliminate the municipalities. That came up several times. What is it? What are they gonna do? Who's gonna control it? We talked about this before. So I would not vote for the motion if we include that.
Larry, is your motion to provide them with the buckets or with a specific list of projects ahead of time? So which option, you're referring to certain things,
I'm
which
not
things are you
talking
referring?
about the amounts that are listed there under option 2 in dollars, but rather consideration for projects from the municipalities. It would have to be renegotiated, I think. But we have to, listen, if there's nothing there for the municipalities, why would they vote for it?
That's true. Another comment, there would be an oversight committee, so the monies for the cities would have oversight by the Citizens Committee oversight, which would include representatives from the cities. So that gives oversight to that money. It's not just hand them $30 million.
Yeah, the oversight committee is
That's the way I
part of the
understand it.
ordinance as the ordinance drafted
Yeah.
presently.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not tied into those numbers on this page, but some
Right.
consideration for things. Everything's gonna be scaled back, so those numbers may even have
Yeah.
to be scaled back.
Right.
The only
Larry, let me
comment,
ask you this, would you be willing to add to that to say, if we do a 10-year program, it removes future projects for the county, would you be willing to add that it also removes future projects, meaning not creating new roads for the municipalities? It has to be maintenance or upgrades of existing roads?
Well, I think without being pinned down on that, I think that's the thing that has to be negotiated.
one thing I would
don't want
offer.
to make that part of a motion and insist that that's what we do.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just, if you're up for a debate is what I'm saying. So we're about to do this again here later.
One thing I would offer in the negotiations with the municipalities is committee is recommending back to council, and then council is either gonna rehear it as second reading or a third reading. And then, so there's a time element. If it's, the recommendation from committee is just kind of generic and to be determined, then we're not ready to have second or third reading at the council level until that's finalized with coordination in the municipalities. So however you word that, just be aware of the time commitment that we've got to finalize council's work.
Is this $90 million that's here for specific projects?
No, not as it's referenced now, it's just,
Well,
yeah,
then the
bucket.
number could be flexible.
Yeah, the number could be flexible, but if you want to get rid of the bucket and list specific, say, for instance, Hilton Head, one project of note is Sea Pine Circle. If you wanted to do specific projects for the municipalities particular, to be coordinated and replace the buckets for the municipalities with their projects, that would take some time to coordinate that, to get it back to council. But if you leave it as kind of open-ended and just say Hilton Head as it is and just tweak the numbers, whether it's 30 million or something different, then that still we'd be fine at that point.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, didn't Mr. Phillips, the mayor of Port Royal, and also the mayor of Beaufort say they didn't want us having oversight of their projects?
Correct.
Do I remember
I've heard
that?
two municipalities say they did not like the fact that we had
Yeah.
oversight.
I don't know
over
about
their
Hilton Head,
buckets.
if we heard from them, or Bluffton,
I
but
don't-
I heard that.
I don't think they understood the oversight committee, how it would work necessarily when they said that.
The oversight committee, the way the school does it, which we're modeling after,
Right.
does not determine what gets paid. The school board does that, which means we would. The oversight committee just monitors the projects, looks for overruns, makes sure we're spending the money the way we are. They're not gonna say,
So-
Sea Pines has to be done. That's not what their job should be.
I'm not sure the mayors would necessarily agree to no money versus some oversight.
I'm just
I
pointing
heard,
out.
that was
this.
early on, that was the first public meeting when they said that, so.
All right, we do have a motion on the floor. At least this will narrow down some years, and then we are still able to move money around before we decide to move anything forward to council or not move anything forward to council. So, Sarah, can I have a roll call, and can we have the motion repeated so everybody knows what they are voting on? I don't know if we got that down, Tom, or do you want to have Larry do it again?
I wrote it down as move to support a 10-year program to include sufficient funding for municipal projects without a
Can't say
further definition or explanation of what that amount is or what the project's are. That would be determined in subsequent discussion.
Okay. Sarah, can we take the roll call?
Yes, sir. Vice Chairman Mellon?
Yes.
Councilmember Howard?
Yes,
Councilmember Reeds?
No.
Councilmember Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
Councilmember Brown?
No.
Councilmember Tavernick?
No.
Councilmember Glover?
Yes.
Councilmember Dawson?
Yes.
Chairman Passman?
No.
Committee Chair Cunningham?
No.
The motion fails.
We're
It's 5-5.
it's
5-5.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, do we have any other motions or discussion of why maybe this one did not pass? Was it the years, was it language?
I don't think we understood the specificity of the particular projects. I think if you're going to do a 10-year, you have to put in what constitutes the projects that we would put out to the voters.
I definitely think that's what we would, our next step would be discussing exactly what would that would be.
Right.
Am I allowed to recommend a motion to somebody else to make, or am I not allowed to do that?
You try to solicit a motion, but I got a motion that says.
I'll make a
blah, blah,
motion.
blah, but
Tab, you see where I'm going with it? Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna make a motion that we go with the 10-year, 950 million, and we worry about the buckets after we agree on the years.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that. I'll second that.
Another roll call if we could, Sarah, unless there's any discussion. I see no discussion.
Councilmember Tabernick?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeds?
No.
Councilmember Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Councilmember Glover?
No.
Councilmember Dawson?
No.
Vice Chair McGillen?
May I have a question on this, Tom?
Yes, sir.
Does this exclude the municipalities from consideration?
No.
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 As I,
Right now, we're
Doesn't?
no, as I understand it, it's, the motion is for 10 years, and the projects to be identified and discussed by you guys next to make a recommendation. So you're agreeing on the money, on the years and the amount of money.
And the participants?
Sorry?
Open to all the participants?
Open to all participants.
it's just the year and the money.
I'll vote yes.
Chairman Passman?
Yes.
Committee Chair Cunningham?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, so currently we are at 10 years, 950 million. So if I go back, can we pull the 10-year up, the slide, please, just so we see what we're all working with here? Okay. Let's see if we can iron out some of this stuff. So currently on this one as well, just like on the 8-year, we had,
I can do the comparison on the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to be able to see the list as well, the way it was, because there are more, okay, yeah, that's fine. That'll work.
This is the original 15 years
Oh.
left, and this is the,
So pretend
And
that.
just to work on the next cell over, the next column over, as opposed to what you're about to do, right, Chairman? With, I think the only thing that we talked about so far.
Yep, that's what I'm about to do, is start seeing what excess money we have.
Okay.
So originally, on this 10-year, we still had 190 million for the US corridor like we did before. If we move that down to 90 million like we discussed before, that's already an extra 100 million. If we go down to the Triangle project, again, that's still at 245, like the 8-year project. If we drop that down to 120, that gives us an extra 125. Now, we still have the green belts on here that actually went up. So now it's at, on the 10-year, it's at 95 million. If we drop that down to, I'm just gonna throw a number out, 50,
Well, I mean,
I
we
mean-
met with the mayors, Joe did, so I'm just,
please.
I would suggest we do the following. Let's not argue over the dollar amount.
you know.
Let's argue over the projects we want to include in there.
Okay,
And I'm going to make a suggestion
yes, sir?
that these be included. US 278 corridor project,
Mhm.
Ladies Island corridor project,
Yep.
safety and traffic flow, dirt roads and resurfacing projects, Greenbelt, the Triangle project, Ribo Road improvements,
We vote.
SC 46 improvements, pathways, mass transit, municipalities, and resiliency evacuation.
All right, so according to that right now, there's two that we need to add to this list then. The resiliency, and it was the third one you said, I'm sorry, I did not get it down.
Municipalities.
Municipalities,
There's one more that you said, I believe, that I didn't get
mass
on.
transit.
Mass transit.
That's there. 10 years.
I changed,
Oh, you're right.
I changed future projects to safety and traffic flow.
You included
Safety
a triangle
projects
in
to
it?
what?
Future projects, I changed that to safety and traffic flow.
Safety's
Well-
up there.
Okay.
Safety projects are up there, so you're adding traffic flow to safety
Yeah.
projects?
Yeah,
Okay. So that's just adding a name to traffic flow, but it's safety projects, okay, which is already on there.
So the only addition is municipalities.
And resiliency.
Resilience.
Well, when you say
Evacuation.
municipalities, you don't want to keep them listed
What?
left and north of the.
well, that's the municipalities.
Yeah, right.
And evacuation?
Resiliency
Yes.
evacuation.
That was the other.
Resiliency
Okay.
evacuation.
Do those go together or are they separate?
We
We
could,
had them together before.
we could put a sum of money in there,
Resiliency and emergency evacuation
Right.
projects,
Right.
okay.
okay?
Alice, I know you were very big on that to begin with, and you and Joe both have brought it up now. Is the original 50 million, do you think, is enough for that project? And maybe that's something Jared can weigh up on that as well? That was the original on the 15-year, was 50 million for it.
I don't know. I mean, I rely on Jared to tell us that
It's fair.
about resiliency. about-
I'm sorry, if
It's
you can
50
repeat.
million,
Resiliency.
Enough.
50, so,
About numbers, it's
I mean,
yeah.
resiliency, you could spend a lot of money there because what you really talk about resiliency is if you have, and this is Jared Fralick's opinion, if you have a corridor that's going across a water body and it needs to be raised,
Joanne Creek.
then, and if you can raise it with earth, but there may be opportunities where you can't raise it with earth and it has to be a structure. Then it really sucks up that money really
And there's a lot
quick.
of state money. There's a whole new department.
There is opportunities for, grant opportunities on that. So $45 million, I think, is what we had in there at one point. And, I mean, it's a new kind of program, a new thought, even at the state, the resiliency
brand new.
program is brand new, so we don't know, this is kind of our first pass at it. It could use a little bit of money or it could use a lot of money, so I know that's not a great
But I
answer,
think
but
we could go after matching grants.
it would definitely be an area that has been prioritized by the state for, to grant, but, yep.
Can I just as a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, would you comment on this program is collecting the entire 1% for infrastructure? Yes?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay,
For roads.
got it.
Yeah. Just so everyone sees the numbers that are happening in my head, it's just the way I work. I know sometimes it's all over the paper, but I see us having an excess of $270 million to fill those areas. I get those numbers from the 100 million we saved in the US 278 corridor project, the 125 million saving from the Triangle project, and the green belt's dropping it from 95 down to 50, which saves us 45. If you add those three numbers up, that's 270 million of excess to fill the things listed by Mr. Passament and Larry. And then I do think we need to put more money into, well, right now I guess we do have, it is 100 million to resurfacing paved roads.
Yeah.
But we need, if these are our list, our projects, if we're agreeing on that list, we need to start divvying up that extra money. And maybe it is back in those, I don't know. But I'm just saying, I believe we can work with that to start funding some of those projects that we've listed.
Can we put pathways in?
I will offer you amounts of money.
You're right on the flag.
You have to fill in pathways, right?
Yeah, where are we at? Pathways is 50 million currently, which would fund all of
Everything.
the 24 remaining with an excess of 20 million based on the projections that it would take 30 million to complete the existing pathway projects. We'd have 20 million left for more pathways. Getting my money's worth today, Jared. Let's do it.
You're doing it.
We're gonna get through this,
Keep
baby.
going,
Come on.
you're doing great. Like,
Okay.
I'm all open for ears. I'm all for you guys telling me to kick rocks with moving money around, period. So whatever works.
Mr.
Let-
Chair, oh.
Let's just go down and see where we're at here.
Okay.
Mr. Dawson, do you have any recommendations to start?
I'm good.
Okay. Tab?
I went back to dirt roads.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go 50 million, sorry. And, safety, 55, the way it was on the chart. I really believe in the resiliency evacuation. I'd put 50 million there.
Okay.
And mass transit, we can't ignore it.
It's on there for 80 million currently.
80 million, so we're gonna leave that on there. And Riverboat Road, can't ignore that one, that was 75.
Is that 75 enough, Jared?
yeah, so what we don't know is fully what Rebo Road is gonna look like. We're
Correct.
still going through the planning process. We just know it'll take amount of money. So we are setting that one up for federal funding, so
Okay.
it will,
So we should, okay.
So I put 50 in resiliency evacuation, and what's resurfacing, we have to do that one, 50 there,
And those were already there, yeah.
yeah.
So new monies added would be you only spent 50 million of the new monies. So on yours, the only thing she added was 50 million to resiliency and evacuation. So that still gives us 220.
Can I back up?
Chairman Cunningham,
Yes, sir.
one thing to note, as we talked about earlier, about what projects are federalized and what projects are not federalized, one thing also to think about is the Ladies Island has been at 40, as well as SC 46. Those two will not be federalized if we want to bump
So you're
those
saying
up.
we might need to put money into those. So let me ask you a question. If we put money into those and end up not using it because the project didn't cost that much, what happens with that remaining money?
Then that comes baunback to county, so it gets approved as
Project was
presented.
completed.
And then if the project comes underfunded, if there's leftover funds, it comes back to county council to be reallocated to one of the projects or projects on the approved referendum.
Okay.
Logan,
Yes, sir.
can I go back and put 50,000 for the 24 pathways?
Only 50,000?
Yeah.
Only 50,000? Or 50 million?
50
I'm
million.
sorry.
You can, but let me point something out. This is the question you asked Jared earlier. If you look to are you on that 10-year option 3 page?
It's right here, 50 million.
Okay, go ahead.
There is currently already 50 million for pathways. And 30 million of that would be dedicated to those 24 pathways that were deemed necessity because of the 2018 referendum,
Is that going to complete all of them, or 24?
with an excess of $20 million
Okay, all right.
to go towards future pathway designs.
And if it's easier to represent, we can
Yeah.
show that 30 up top and then
Right,
20
20
for
on
new
Let's,
ones.
that would be great. Let's do that for him.
30
So
and
put
20.
30 there and drop the other pathways down to 20
Yep,
for futures. That would be
That's right.
great.
how's
That would
that?
clear that up. It's a good idea, Joe.
That's good.
All right, Joe? I'm not sure.
I have slightly different numbers, but put in for the municipalities, 40 million each, that's $120 million.
See where that puts us, 120. So it still leaves us with 100 million.
100 million. I had the resiliency evacuation at 115 million.
115.
Yeah.
What would that
If you
be?
do 100 million, you're at the 950.
Well, no, we still have some left over because there's already 20 there. We'd still have 20 left over if we did that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
access roads, by not putting any money in there, what's the danger of not putting any
Yeah,
money in there?
and really, so
Where's
access
access
roads, what the intent there and technology is, if we have an access management plan that says this is where the signal is, either existing or future, and then we have a couple of parcels that now have a meeting in front of them and can't get to the signal, an access road would be working to find a way for those parcels to get back to the side street at the signal. That's the
That's
intent with the
cool.
access road. And the technology can be expensive or it can kind of be cheap as far as what type of projects, but a technology project would be connecting all the signals with fiber connectivity. And so what you get in a scenario like that is you can squeeze a lot of capacity out by retiming and resetting the signals for relative to widening the road. It's a much lower cost. So technology sometimes can be an easy way to increase capacity and flow at a relatively low
Lower
dollar.
cost.
So without having those opportunities, wouldn't be funded.
Sure, let me ask you a question on that then. So, resiliency and evacuation. What all can be done with that? Because from my understanding earlier in your presentation, safety gives us more of a range to use it across the county on multiple different projects. Can you tell me how those are different and how those monies could be spent? Because I understand Chairman Passament's idea behind it, but I'm wondering if we don't use it and it's sitting there because it's not a specific project, but if we put it in safety and it could be used in that same way later on as resiliency and evacuation, it gives us more flexibility.
Yeah, so evacuation, again, these are kind of big ideas. They're not finalized and the details aren't. But so evacuation is our major routes getting out of Beaufort County. In the event of a storm, what roads are we using? And those are already set by DOT. These are our evacuation routes. Now, we might have some more local routes that feed to the evacuation route that we could still consider for types of improvement. But an example is, I know Councilman Glover talks about Chowan Creek. So if we needed to widen Chowan Creek Bridge to make sure that there's at least 4 lanes to pass through that one direction to all the Sea Islands, that would be an evacuation route improvement. Or maybe we need to widen a section from 2 lanes to 3 lanes to allow that accident to get around. Resilient, so there would be limited roads of which evacuation would be utilized on.
The funds could be utilized on.
Resiliency, though, could be used on really any low-lying roads. Now, we have a lot of low-lying areas within the county, but we also have areas that don't flood. 278 doesn't flood. Now, 278 is probably a poor example because it is an evacuation route. But anyway, so there's roads that don't flood even though we are in a low-lying county. But there are an awful lot of roads that are low-lying roads that do flood. And so safety, back to Chowan Creek as an example, if we're having issues with Chowan Creek because of there's repetitive crash incidents there, or we want to be ahead of that, then it could be attributed. The intent with all those programs is to be as objective as possible, so you guys don't have to decide every time we want to do a project. You said, hey, if we create a priority list that has certain factors that are important to county council, and then when we have projects that are requested to be funded, and we filter those through a priority list, and if safety has certain elements, then it could be on an evacuation route, or it could not, depending on if
So
it
it
meets
could
those.
be used on, that was gonna be my next question. It can be used on an evacuation route.
Yeah, safety could be used on any route, small, big, throughout
And
the
that could
county.
be road improvements, traffic light, right-of-ways, turns,
Pathways.
pathways.
Potentially.
Would you be open to flopping that then, Mr. Passman?
Sure. To finish out the 950, as we said, since the local projects are 46 in Ladies Island, I would move up the Ladies Island project to 70 million and the SC 46 to 50 million. That gives you the 950 million.
Where are they at?
But do we need that?
Before we do that,
Yeah, so is that too much though, Jared?
Yeah.
What would you think, Mr. Passman, what did you think of 10 on each to give it the extra 10 million buffer?
Again, the whole idea is 10 years gives us $950 million.
Right, but we can still put that money into one of these other ones when we get
I'm just
around.
filling the buckets out so we
For
have
now,
all
I understand.
950.
Okay.
Now, if we are in agreement, yeah, that seems like everybody gets a piece of the pie
Yeah.
across the county.
Can we go ahead
We
and put
just
that in
then
there to hit the
massage the
950 then, and then we can, well, we still got this whole other side over here too, then we'll, I see what you're saying, we're just getting to the 950 then, okay.
Right, so put South Carolina 46 from 20 to 50. and Ladies Island goes to 70.
All right, so that
And
puts
there's
us,
your 950.
that's 960 somehow.
Just take 10 off.
Oh,
one of
yeah, it's Ladies Island, you went up 30 on Ladies Island, it's supposed to be 60.
them. 40.
There we go.
I have 40, okay.
Yeah, up to.
All right, Mr. McKellen?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
I'm comfortable with the numbers. I was going to recommend the municipalities come in at the 12-year number of 30, which was a reduction from the 15 of 50, but I'm comfortable with the 40. I can live with that. I have no other recommendations. That was everything else suits me just fine.
If you did the 30, where would you put that other 30?
Future projects.
Well, I would leave that available for others. I wasn't going to put it anywhere. I mean,
I'm gonna
we've got
agree with
3 more
Mr.
people here
McKellen.
from- What's
I'm with
that?
an agreement on you, the two, honestly.
I'm in agreement with you, 30.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I wanted to put up there, because that is the.
Mr. Robinson, you're on the
recommendation
computer,
for 12
right?
years.
Yes, sir.
On to the far right of the Bluffton, north of the Broad, and Hilton Head projects, next to the right of your X, can you just put a 30 on all three of those?
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the number that
So that gives us an excess now
is in the 12-year
of
program,
30 million somewhere else as well.
right?
And this one?
Yes, sir, if you could, please. Gives us an excess of 30 million. Okay.
Question.
Anything else, Mr. McKellen?
No, I'm good.
Ms. Brown?
Okay, so I'm just reiterate what my district wants.
Mm-hmm.
They want the 278, they want Ladies Island,
Hit.
okay? The Triangle,
Mm-hmm.
Revo Road,
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina 46, safety, dirt roads, pathways. And that only comes out to, if you have the resurfacing, that wasn't one of theirs, but if you add that, it comes out to 950. So basically, exactly what they want is exactly option 3.
So you're comfortable with it?
Very, yeah.
Mr. Robinson, can we just, for eyes
They
for a
wanted
second,
it.
I'm coming back, I promise, yeah. Can we flip those ones? Mr. Passman said he agreed that that'd be okay. The safety to 100 million and resiliency to 55? It gives us more flexibility to where to use those funds. And then resiliency evacuation of 55. Thank you, sir.
My turn, Bonnie?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
I think safety is a big bucket, which I'm fine with that, and I think technology can be included, because if you coordinate the lights, for instance, it's a safety thing, and I think, that's an over-encompassing bucket, so I'm good with increasing it to 100 million. We're gonna have to educate some people about why we reduce Greenbelt, but I think that can be done, because we've got other options that are still going on. And then resiliency and evacuation and pathways. I wish we could put more in pathways, but I think that'll do it. Okay.
Ms. Howard, let me ask you this. Off to the right there, if we reduce the projects from municipalities by 10 million each, that gives you an extra 30. Would you want to put that into the bucket of technology and access roads?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay, so we still have that excess.
I think technology and access roads we can include in safety.
Okay.
Just think broadly, yeah.
Tom?
Mr. Chairman, thanks. Jared, with the Hilton Head project, the 40 or 30 million, how much of that will be for the Sea Pine Circle?
I don't know specifically. They're still working through the design. I mean, whether that would be go back to a traditional intersection or an overpass or an improved roundabout. So,
Have they shared with you any numbers on what that chop up and that
no, I
redesign would
think
cost?
it's probably in a $10 to $25 million project, depending on what they're looking at. I mean, it could be. Yeah, that's as far as, I mean, it's very conceptual what they've been looking at so far.
So the 40 or 30 is not 100% for Sea Pines, it's for Hilton Head, and then they dole it out as they see fit.
Yeah, they have a list of projects. They, probably more than the other municipalities, have a kind of CIP for road projects that they'd like to achieve. And so they have plenty of uses to spend that funding.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Mr. Dawson, you said you had a question earlier. Yes, sir.
Yeah. We've been paving dirt roads in the county now for the last 12, 15 years, and we still have a lot of unpaved road. We started this draft with 180 million for dirt road paving, and we have suggested 50 million. Why don't we increase that to another 50, give it 100, and that would get, Jared, what do you think that would get us? 100 million would get us as far as trying to complete the balance of the dirt road.
Beforehand, Jared, Mr. Dawson, it's still at 100 million currently. They just split it up.
Well, so no, it's 100 million. It was a bucket together, dirt roads and resurfacing, and right now they're prioritized equally. And so it's at 50 million currently is what it's shown as. And I don't know specifically, but it would get us a lot further. So we have 70 miles of dirt road to be paved, and we have about $2.5 million a year that's coming through our tag fund that we put towards it. But as discussed earlier on 278, what's been eating away at our how fast we're doing it is the cost of construction. So we were getting more, and dirt roads, it's going to take us a while to achieve all the dirt roads in Beaufort County to be paved. But the slower we do it, the higher that we're seeing the cost of construction outpace how fast if our money has basically been constant and the cost of construction is going faster. So if we put more money towards that equation, that'll help us stay with the cost of construction and finish that sooner. I know that's a roundabout answer.
30.
All right, but then that haven't been said.
Take 10
Is it actually
million
30?
from each of those and make it
Make
80
this
million.
80.
Yeah. Okay.
So can we drop the municipalities down to 30 on the,
And get 80 million.
yeah, and then drop those down to 30
Where are we adding? I'm sorry.
to dirt road paving?
It says 30 million going in dirt roads to make it 80 from 50.
Yep,
Then you're still at the
we
950.
should be at the 950 at that point.
Sure. Yep.
Awesome. Jared, do you think, to
How's that?
answer
It helps.
to Mr. Dawson's question, I know you can't give a yes or no, but is 80 million gonna get us there,
It gets us,
along with our other funding source we have?
yeah, it gets us really close. What I don't want to sit here and say either, though,
It's
is
gonna
that
pave every dirt road.
it's going to pave every dirt road, nor will we have all the dirt roads paved in 8 years. So it would be the funding mechanism to get the projects out of the door. But that level of projects, we don't have enough contractors to spend to build $80 million, or we haven't historically, $80 million worth in that period of time. We haven't, but all that says is it will get us very close, a lot closer than we are today. And that is a big caveat if we don't take other roads, if we have our road inventory is where it is today.
Status quo, if we don't take over.
We'll-
Alrighty,
We'll put a moratorium on not accepting
And not
any other
accepting.
roads into the county.
Hey Logan, this is Mark.
yes, sir.
Hey, I just want to put my 2 cents in. And
Please.
I think the compromise we have come to is actually a very good compromise. If I had my choice, I would probably left more in municipalities, as Joe had mentioned earlier. However, I'm willing to let that go and move the money around like we've talked about. I think the more money we give the municipalities, the more support we'll get. But again, I am fine with the current slots we have for monies and where they're allocated.
So
Yes.
when we explain this to the public, how are you going to explain 278 and the triangle dropped off? Because remember, we already told them 190 and 245, so.
Yeah, we also told, I mean, there's a lot of things that were discussed before, but those were also rough numbers. That's why we haven't
Yeah.
passed anything out to the public. This is a very open and transparent process. We're discussing this in front of everyone. I think that's what it's about. We're talking about how are we gonna help the entire county. This isn't a project for one group, another group, the Hilton Head, Bluffton. This is a project for the entire county. And I also think it shows, we discussed it here, that the state is interested in these projects as
We're
well.
hoping they come through.
Yeah, and we
If
didn't,
not, we have another plan for it.
we didn't drop it from the initial. We've increased it from the initial. We've just dropped it since the last 2 weeks.
Correct.
And,
Okay.
and that's been based off discussions that we've had with the state and DOT.
We're hoping.
Actually, if you go back to it, you're right. The first one we voted on the first time before we sent it back to the committee, we only had 60 million for the US 278.
Right.
And we had the Triangle project at 100 million,
100 million.
which we are at the Triangle now at 120. So we actually added 20 million and added 60 million to those projects to make sure that they get completed and hopefully make that more palatable for other people to kick in and help to get this done. Any other discussion before I have a couple comments? I think this is a great compromise.
Time for motion.
Yep, I think this is a great compromise to get this done across the county. I'm glad we got the years ironed out. Hopefully, the rest of the legislation, the state and the municipalities will back this up as well, whether that's our representatives in the municipalities or for us representing at the state level. I will say my only concern that I have is we currently do not have any language that prohibits new roads, which Bluffton is going to fight if we just give a bucket over. So we need to be clear of how, before we go to vote to council, how that 30 million can be used in Bluffton. I have no problem giving the municipality the money because I think they've done a great job in Bluffton. But if it's not on there that says no 5B, Bluffton will not support this referendum. I'm just being honest, it's gonna happen in my area and Paula's area and probably your area as well, Tab.
So you're saying we have to include no 5B again?
I am not allowed to make any motions
Oh, I'm
as
sorry.
chairman.
Okay.
But I will entertain any other discussion that we have.
We have to say no 5B.
My constituents don't want this referendum, just like Mr. Reese does. But they went ahead and gave me their options, and option 3 was the best option for them. So, if the bottom line here is, in November, the taxpayer will vote yes or no on this referendum.
Right.
It doesn't matter what we do.
Do we have any other amendments or motions to be made?
So I'll make an amendment to the current motion, and that would be.
There is no motion.
Oh, I thought you made the motion.
Well, the motion was for 10
amendments.
years,
Motions for 10 years.
and that's been adopted. Now,
Correct.
we've filled in the buckets.
So that
So
will be
you
a
can-
so
motion.
now we have to have a motion to accept
buckets.
the 10-year referendum to include the following projects.
Yes, so I'll make that motion, but it also has a cap. What? Huh?
Somebody on
Who's
iPhone.
that?
You're good.
Oh, so I'll make that motion, 10-year referendum, and it includes the buckets we've identified, and we need to,
Funds.
the fund,
amount,
but we
right,
need to
projects
tell
and funds.
Bluffton no 5B.
And with a cap, 10-year at what
I
cap?
don't think you can
Pretty
really say it that
Confusing
way.
motion.
Well,
So,
otherwise they can do
I think
it.
I think what you're trying to say is 10 years or we already have the 10 years and the
Right.
950. The projects as identified and under the municipal project specific to Bluffton, that 5B is not.
Excluded.
5B is excluded as a project.
5B is excluded as a project,
Yes.
is what you're saying.
That's right.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Do we need a roll call? Let's take one, Sarah, just to be safe if we could.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Yes,
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Councilmember Reese?
No.
Councilmember Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Glover?
I'm gonna vote yes because this 10 years, is Jared was 2 years ago. Thank you.
Councilmember Dawson?
Yes.
Vice Chair McKellen?
Yes.
Chairman Passman?
Yes.
Committee Chair Cunningham?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, so now we have set funding, we have set years, a cap amount, as well as the recommendation that if we decide to move forward to county council, where those funding sources would be allocated to. I would like to remind the public as well that this would, if this is passed in November, it goes, well, there's gonna be a gap there because we have the penny, green space referendum dropping off before this would go in. So our sales tax would actually remain the same when this goes into effect. It would stay at the same percentage we have now. So now we would just need to know if we have a recommendation to send this forward to county council for further consideration.
I would like to recommend.
We have a motion. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second it.
A tab at the second. Any discussion? Can this be done with no objection and sent forward to county council?
Amen.
And I see no objection. This will move forward to county council for further consideration. And that actually leaves us with no other agenda items here today for this committee. I appreciate you guys coming out. I believe there is another meeting at 1 o'clock. Look forward to seeing you guys there. We are adjourned.
Thank you.